Aryna, everyone's looking forward to a possible final between you and Iga, like the final you had last year. Of course, it's still far away. What did you get to see our match yesterday? What do you think of it? And also the challenge put up by Alex Eala.
Well, I mean, yeah, it was a great match, and honestly, I think like Iga didn't really start well. She was missing a lot, but then she kind of like found her rhythm and she started playing much better, and she put a lot of pressure on Eala and got the win. Yeah, it was a great match from Iga, kind of like nice comeback after like really tough start.
Yeah.
Sabalenka just did something unspeakable and the whole world is talking about it. But the real shock did not even come from her racket. It came from the stands at Indian Wells, where one fan casually admitted they only pay to watch one player. And suddenly, the entire sport felt exposed in a way nobody saw coming. So what does that say about tennis itself? And why is everyone quietly asking the same uncomfortable question now?
Is she the biggest draw in women's tennis right now?
Yes.
Is she bigger than Sabalenka? Is she bigger than Coco?
Dude, it's crazy. She's having the same effect that Fonseca was having, like, on the men's side last year in Miami.
It's like Fonseca, but I think it's bigger than Fonseca.
It is, yeah, it is.
Like, the Doha, like, crowds were insane for her last week.
If she wins a slam, it would be like one of the biggest things in the world.
Yeah,
correct.
She's definitely one to watch, obviously because she's so good, but just for the atmosphere. You want to tune into her matches just to see what it's like on the court.
There's got to be like a little jealousy maybe from some of the women. That girl's coming in, she's not top 10, biggest star in the world.
For years, tennis has operated under the assumption that the sport itself is the main attraction, that the stars rotate, but the audience remains loyal to the game. That belief now feels fragile because what is happening around Alex Eala is not just support, it is selective devotion.
What did you make of her run in Miami and her as a player?
Yeah, I thought it was really fascinating. She uses her leftiness really well. When she went on that run, it was really impressive how she handled the big moments on the stadium court. What's interesting about her draw in Madrid is if she beats Tomova, who does she play second round? It would be Swiatek, who has that bye. So I love this in women's tennis right now, where you get like a compelling matchup maybe a month after the first one.
It is the kind of loyalty that does not spread evenly across a tournament schedule, and it does not politely extend to other matches out of curiosity. It shows up loudly for one name and disappears just as quickly when that name is not on the scoreboard.
20-year-old Filipino tennis star Alex Eala has sent Melbourne Park crowds into an absolute frenzy.
Get close to court 6 yesterday. Alex Eala playing over there. This was a wild, wild scene, Mark.
That people were so nicely standing in line, but they would be there for at least an hour if they ever got to the match. So kudos to the fans.
She probably needed to be on a bigger show court. She's, I think, the most famous female from the Philippines, certainly one of the most famous people ever to come through there in the sporting world. And there were so many fans here who were just waiting to get.
The scene at Indian Wells made that contrast impossible to miss. Every point felt amplified, every rally stretched the tension tighter, and every cheer sounded like it belonged in a completely different tournament.
Together.
What do you think of Ayala's challenge? Like she won the first set and she...
Well, I think she's kind of like she has nothing to lose, and she go out there and she just play with the courage and then like going for like crazy shots, I think, and I think that's also like kind of like putting some pressure on Iga when she see like someone is not like really afraid of her, and then putting pressure back on her. So I think it's all about this, and it's interesting to see like if the player like got to like top level, and it's interesting to see like if they can stay there and maintain the level. So I think that's the big.
Eala had just battled through a grueling 3-set match against a tough opponent, pushing through momentum swings, fatigue, and the creeping desert cold that settles in long after the sun disappears. The scoreline alone told a story of endurance, but the real story unfolded around her. The crowd did not behave like spectators watching a match. They reacted like a community protecting something they felt personally connected to. Even outside the stadium, people waited long after the match ended, not because they were casually interested, but because leaving early was never part of the plan. What makes this situation fascinating is not just the energy itself, but how unevenly it is distributed. Across the same venue, At the same time, matches featuring some of the biggest names in the sport struggled to fill seats, while Eala's court overflowed with fans who had traveled, planned, and committed specifically for her. This is not a subtle shift in attention. It is a complete imbalance that forces uncomfortable questions about what truly drives engagement in modern tennis. The numbers behind the scenes only deepen the mystery. Tournament organizers have quietly acknowledged that her matches generate a level of demand they rarely see, with ticket sales spiking in ways that do not align with rankings or traditional expectations. In another city just weeks earlier, her presence alone turned an ordinary stretch of matches into a sold-out spectacle, leaving officials scrambling to keep up with demand that seemed to appear overnight.
Tennis, the last couple of decades, you get countries that wouldn't even be mentioned as a tennis country. You can hardly even remember a player from the Philippines, and then you all of a sudden get this talent. I like the story, the connection with Rafa Nadal and his academy.
Yeah.
She's a lefty. A couple of times when she produced some forehands, I'm like, whew.
Yeah.
I see. It's tough to compare anybody's forehand to Nadal, but she's a great story.
She's a great story. I don't think that she'll probably have quite as many Roland Garroses in her locker as Rafa did come the end of her career, but I'm very much looking forward to seeing how she gets on.
And then there is the digital side of the story, which might be even more revealing. Before a single ball is struck, before any match result can shape the narrative, the attention gap is already massive. Press conferences, interviews, and pre-tournament appearances draw audiences that dwarf those of more established champions. It is as if the interest in her exists independently of results, driven by something deeper than rankings or titles. That is where things start to get complicated, because this kind of attention does not follow the usual rules. It does not build gradually through years of consistent success, and it does not depend entirely on winning the biggest matches. Instead, it seems to come from a connection that feels cultural, emotional, and collective all at once. It is not just about watching a player compete. It is about showing up for what that player represents. Other players have noticed it too, and their reactions have been telling. After facing Eala in a high-profile match, one opponent openly acknowledged that much of the crowd's support was not for the result, but for the presence of Eala herself. Instead of dismissing it, she recognized it as something valuable, even transformative for the sport. That kind of response reveals an awareness that this is not a passing trend, but a shift that could reshape how tennis understands its audience. Eala herself seems both aware of and overwhelmed by what is happening. After one particularly emotional victory, her voice carried the weight of everything surrounding her as she spoke about the fans who stayed late into the night, braving the cold just to support her.
Is she the biggest draw in women's tennis right now?
Yes.
Is she bigger than Sabalenka? Is she bigger than Coco?
Dude, it's crazy. She's having the same effect that Fonseca was having, like, on the men's side last year in Miami.
It's like Fonseca, but I think it's bigger than Fonseca.
It is. Yeah, it is.
Like, the Doha, like, crowds were insane for her last week.
If she wins a slam, it would be like one of the biggest things in the world.
Yeah, correct. She's definitely one to watch, obviously because she's so good, but just for the atmosphere. You want to tune into her matches just to see what it's like on the court.
There's got to be like a little jealousy maybe from some of the women. That girl's coming in, she's not top 10, biggest star in the world.
It was not a rehearsed moment or a polished statement. It felt raw, as if she was still processing the scale of what she had become to so many people. That authenticity might be the key to understanding why this phenomenon feels different. Fans are not just reacting to highlights or rankings, they are responding to a story that feels personal. They see her growth, her struggles, and her resilience, and they invest in it as if it belongs to them as well. That kind of connection cannot be manufactured, and it certainly cannot be easily replicated. However, this raises a question that the sport cannot ignore much longer. If fans are showing up primarily for one player, what happens when that player is not in the draw? Do they stay and discover the rest of the field, or do they simply wait for the next opportunity to support their favorite? The answer to that question could determine whether the surge in attention becomes a long-term benefit for tennis or a more complicated challenge. There is also the issue of expectations, because once a player becomes the central to the atmosphere of an event, every appearance carries additional pressure. It is no longer just about performance. It is about delivering an experience that matches the energy of the crowd. That is a difficult balance to maintain, especially in a sport where results can be unpredictable and momentum can shift quickly. What makes this story even more intriguing is how quickly it has developed. Just weeks before these packed stadiums and viral moments, there were matches where the results did not go her way, including a tough loss that could have easily slowed the momentum. Instead, the response from her supporters remained unwavering, showing up again in even greater numbers at the next event, as if the loss had only strengthened their commitment.
Yeah, how well you did play and how tough an opponent she is as well. What pleases you most from the performance out there?
Well, yeah, she's a great player, and she definitely one of the players who really make you work for every point, and she hit like really pretty flat, deep shots. So I'm super happy with the movement today and with the way I stayed low on the court. You know, like you gotta be really low against her. So I'm super happy with the movement, and of course, my serve was definitely great today.
That kind of resilience from a fan base is rare, especially in a sport where attention often follows success. Here, the loyalty seems to operate on a different level, one that is not shaken by setbacks or short-term outcomes. It suggests that what is happening goes beyond performance metrics and enters the realm of identity and representation. As the tour moves forward, every upcoming tournament becomes a test case. Organizers will watch closely to see whether this pattern repeats, whether the same surge of energy follows her from one location to another, and whether it begins to influence how events are structured and promoted. There is already a sense that her presence can reshape the dynamics of an entire draw, turning certain matches into must-see events almost instantly. At the same time, there is a broader conversation emerging about what this means for the future of the sport. Tennis has always relied on a balance between individual stars and the overall appeal of the competition. If that balance shifts too far in one direction, it could create both opportunities and challenges that the sport has never had to navigate before. For now, the story continues to unfold in real time, with each match adding another layer to the narrative. The crowds, the reactions, and the conversations all point to something that feels bigger than a typical breakout moment. It feels like a turning point, one that forces everyone involved to reconsider what truly drives interest and engagement in tennis. And at the center of it all is a player who, not long ago, was simply trying to climb the rankings like everyone else. Now, she finds herself at the heart of a movement that is redefining what it means to be a draw in professional sports. The question is no longer whether this phenomenon is real, because the evidence is impossible to ignore.
I mean, she's improving all the time. She's a really nice person already. She's a really good player. It's really nice to see her improving. She keeps going all the time. She's a fighter on the court. What is nice for me, she's so young, and maybe she will play with my daughter one day. So it's really nice for me to see also the improvement. And I mean, she's a super good example for my daughter too, because she's really a fighter. She's positive. She goes out there. She's a kind person. And I think it's a really good example for everybody.
The real question is what happens next. Will this wave of support expand into a deeper connection with the sport itself, bringing new fans into the broader tennis world? Or will it remain focused on one player, creating a unique but isolated surge of attention that exists outside the usual patterns? Either way, one thing is certain. The moment that fans spoke those words at Indian Wells, the conversation changed. What sounded like a simple statement turned into a challenge for the entire sport to understand its audience in a new way. And as long as that question remains unanswered, every match, every tournament, and every packed stadium will feel like another clue in a story that is still being written. The uncertainty is what makes this moment so compelling, because tennis is not used to asking these kinds of questions about itself. It has always relied on tradition, legacy, and a steady rotation of stars to carry the sport forward, but what is unfolding now does not follow that script. It feels unpredictable, almost disruptive, as if one player has unintentionally exposed a gap between what the sport assumes its audience wants and what a large portion of that audience is actually responding to. As the tour shifts toward Miami and then deeper into the season, the spotlight does not just follow results anymore. It follows anticipation. Tournament organizers are no longer simply hoping for competitive matches. They are quietly hoping for one specific name to appear on their schedule because they understand what comes with it. Packed stands, louder atmospheres, and a kind of energy that transforms an ordinary match into something that feels like a main event regardless of the round.
Yeah, well, I think on social media, in terms of that metric, the biggest thing I've noticed actually is that this tournament is the Australian Open YouTube channel. Yeah. They uploaded 29 of the pre-tournament press conferences that the players did, and mostly it's the biggest stars in the sport. And then also Eala, who is clearly one of the biggest stars. And before, as of today, I was looking at the view counts for these videos. Eala is in first place among all 29 of these top Australian Open players. I think at the time she had about 173,000 views on this YouTube video of her press conference. But the second place was Novak Djokovic.
This creates a fascinating tension behind the scenes because while the sport celebrates depth and competitiveness, it also thrives on moments that capture attention beyond its usual audience. Eala's rise is doing exactly that, but in a way that is not evenly distributed. It is concentrated, almost laser-focused, and that forces decision-makers to rethink how they present the sport moving forward. There is also an emotional layer that cannot be ignored. For many of her supporters, this is not just about tennis. It is about visibility, pride, and the feeling of being represented on a stage that has not always reflected them. When those fans show up, they are not simply attending a sporting event. They are participating in something that feels bigger than the scoreboard, and that intensity translates into the kind of atmosphere that players immediately notice. Opponents walking onto those courts are not just facing a competitor across the net. They're stepping into an environment that already feels tilted, where every point is amplified and every mistake echoes louder than usual. That does not decide matches on its own, but it changes the rhythm, the pressure, and the emotional weight of every rally. It is the kind of factor that cannot be measured statistically, yet everyone on court feels it. For Eala, maintaining focus within that environment becomes its own challenge. The support fuels her, but it also raises expectations to a level that can be difficult to manage, especially in tight matches where momentum swings quickly. Every comeback feels more dramatic, every setback feels heavier, and every victory carries the emotional release of an entire crowd that has invested in the outcome.
I think every player would say that we can talk, and she's a kind person who always is happy, always talks. I mean, we are seeing her all the time, even the whole family, and we are traveling with our family, so it's like family and family. We are talking a lot also with her parents, so it's really nice, and it's nice to see her how she works every week.
What makes her response so intriguing is that she does not seem to treat the attention as a burden. Instead, she leans into it, acknowledging the role her supporters play without letting it overshadow the work she has to do on court. That balance is not easy to maintain, particularly as the spotlight grows brighter with each tournament, but it is part of what keeps the connection authentic. At the same time, the broader tennis community is watching closely, trying to understand whether this phenomenon can evolve into something more sustainable. There is a difference between drawing crowds for one player and building a long-term audience for the sport itself. The ideal outcome would be a transition where fans who arrive for Eala begin to explore the rest of the field, discovering new players and developing a deeper appreciation for the game as a whole. However, that transition is not guaranteed. Loyalty of this kind can be incredibly specific, and if it remains centered on one individual, it could create a scenario where interest fluctuates depending on her presence in a tournament. That is both a strength and a potential vulnerability because it highlights just how powerful her influence has become while also revealing how dependent certain audiences might be on it. This is where the role of storytelling becomes crucial. Tennis has an opportunity to introduce these new fans to the narratives that exist beyond a single player, to showcase rivalries, personalities, and journeys that can capture attention in a similar way. If done effectively, it could turn a concentrated wave of support into a broader expansion of the sport's audience.
It's amazing. I mean, I played her when she kind of broke out last year in Miami, and I'm from there, and the whole crowd was against me, and I was like, what on earth is going on? Like, where do these people come from? And then week after week, as she, has done well and established herself as a really good player on tour, they all come out to support her. And so I think we saw that in Australia when it was kind of overcrowded. They put her on too small of a court. We saw it here. You can hear it from the hotel. You can hear the crowd roaring, especially at night. So it's.
Meanwhile, every match continues to add new layers to Eala's story. Each win reinforces the belief that she belongs on these stages, while each loss tests the resilience of both her and the community that supports her. The challenge will be managing that growth in a way that benefits both the player and the game without creating unintended imbalances. As the season progresses, the questions will only become more pointed. Will other players begin to attract similar followings, creating a more diverse and dynamic fan landscape? Will tournaments adapt their strategies to maximize the impact of these moments? And perhaps most importantly, will the fans who are currently showing up for one player find reasons to stay even when she is not on the court? These are not questions with immediate answers, and that uncertainty is what keeps the story alive. Every tournament becomes a new chapter, every crowd reaction becomes a new clue, and every performance adds another piece to a puzzle that is still far from complete. What is clear, however, is that something has shifted. The sport is no longer operating under the same assumptions it once did, and the evidence is visible in packed stands, in emotional reactions, and in the kind of conversations that are now happening at every level of the game. This is no longer just about rankings or results. It is about connection, influence, and the evolving relationship between players and the audiences that follow them. And as long as that relationship continues to develop in unexpected ways, the attention will not fade. It will grow, it will adapt, and it will keep forcing the sport to confront a simple but uncomfortable reality. The fans have shown exactly what they respond to, and now the question is whether tennis is ready to meet them there or risk watching that energy remain focused on one name while the rest of the field tries to catch up.